Son of a beef bowler!
Welcome to 2-Bit Gaming. Today's topic, the 3D chip wars. So, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the phrase console war? If it's the 360, PS3, and Wii, then you might be a little too young to remember the legendary 16-bit era. The Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis were locked in an epic battle for the hearts and minds of gamers everywhere. Anything one company had, the other usually tried to trump, one way or the other. It was a time of great innovations, and we gamers reaped the benefits. In that epic war, there were many smaller battles. One such battle was nearly invisible unless you were kind of a technology nut. There were all these new words like polygons and particles. It was the beginning of something that would change gaming forever. It was the battle for 3D console supremacy. When the Genesis was released back in 1989, it was a leap in graphical fidelity over the 8-bit generation. About a year later, the SNES brought a few more tricks to the table, but if anything, it was a minor step up. Both systems offered what was varying degrees of success in early 3D techniques. But they were really 2D machines by design. Most of us, at least at first, didn't care. No matter what system you had, you were sure to get the pinnacle of 2D gaming at the time. Well, the march of progress is relentless, and both systems started showing their age compared to the 3D capabilities of the new and now affordable home computer. By 1993, Doom had cemented 3D graphics as the future of gaming. Sega and Nintendo knew they needed to get with the times, or consumers would start looking elsewhere for their high-tech gaming fix. Nintendo's solution was the Argonaut-developed Super FX chip, a special RISC processor designed to calculate polygons and other effects in conjunction with the Super Nintendo's hardware. Star Fox was the first and probably most well-known of the Super FX games. Co-developed by Argonaut Games, it was the first of a new genre, the polygonal on-rails shooter. To this day, even with its shortcomings, it's still one of my all-time favorite games. Other games using the Super FX chip include Stunt Race FX, Vortex, and Dirt Tracks FX. Later on, an improved version of the FX chip brought the glory of Doom, in a less than glorious way, to the Super Nintendo. Yoshi's Island used the Super FX chip too as well, but for sprite manipulation rather than 3D effects. Not to be outdone, Sega entered the 3D market with the SVP chip, or Sega Virtual Processor. Oddly enough, Sega, who had been at the forefront of 3D graphics technology in arcades, was a little late in bringing 3D graphics to the Genesis. By the time the only game to use the chip, Virtua Racing, was released, Nintendo had already published 3D games and was developing the Super FX chip too. In its favor, the SVP chip is more powerful than the Super FX chip, capable of pushing more polygons at a higher frame rate. Unfortunately, that performance shot the game's price to about $100. Meanwhile, Super FX games were barely more expensive than regular Super Nintendo games. Today, you can get Virtual Racing for less than $1. But back then, it was hard to justify spending $100 for a downgraded version of the same game you could play for a quarter down at the arcade. You can think of both Nintendo and Sega's chips as system expansion hardware. The fact they're built into the game is really just to make things invisible to the consumer. No installation, no upgrade, it's built right in and it works on day one. Let's take a look at both side by side. Virtua Racing definitely runs at a higher frame rate, and while you can almost count the on-screen polygons used to render Star Fox, Virtual Racing has too many to count. I still love Star Fox though. It's a classic game with cool characters and fun levels, and just the right kind of art design to cover up its simplistic visuals. While I do think Star Fox runs fast enough, its slow frame rate doesn't take away from the gameplay, but compared to Virtua Racing, it runs a little slow. Like I said, not too slow, but slow. Stunt Race FX is another story altogether. The frame rate is so poor, it looks like a slideshow compared to Virtual Racing. I mean, the whole point of a racing game is to feel like you're going fast, and this does not abate anyone's need for speed. You know, it's funny, but I don't remember Stunt Race FX running this slow back when I was in my pajamas, playing it on the floor on a Saturday morning, in between the good cartoons. I used to play it all the time, and I remember loving it. I guess back then I hadn't yet been spoiled by more powerful systems, and I guess I just didn't know any better. Dirt Tracks FX holds up a little better. Take my advice though, if you're going to play it, turn off the sound. Dirt Tracks FX has some of the most annoying sound effects. Whatever that honking sound is. Every time you pass the leader or get past, you get the same honking melody. It happens over and over in every race. It's madness! Madness!
You know, once you pass everyone, you won't hear it anymore. So, just stop sucking.
I can't! I just can't!